Hello, and welcome to another week of Abuse Cartoons live stream. So I'm here after a kind of a sad weekend. I lost the last of my grandparents over this weekend, and it's very strange. The last few grandparents have died right around my birthday every year, so it's a very strange feeling. But of course, after you've lost your grandparents, then you immediately start thinking about, well, I guess your parents are next, and so you've got only a few decades before that sort of thing becomes a reality. So yeah, fun stuff. But an interesting thing about in Japan, you can tell when a family has had a family member pass away, especially around New Year's, because they either won't send out a New Year's card, or they'll send out a very muted, kind of tame version of the card, no smiling photos or anything, just something, just some seasonal message or something. And so, kind of out of respect and as a gesture of mourning, they limit the kind of celebrations and things they do, and may even cancel parties and things, just to show that they're remembering that person, they're taking it seriously, because there's a lot of, there's a lot more ritual involved after someone passes away in Japan. There's a lot of, they have a certain number of days that you pray, for their soul to enter heaven. And so there's many, many ceremonies that kind of follow, and you have the priest come to your house and have ceremonies quite often. There's like a set number of days just to make sure everything's going okay for the relative you lost. But yeah, so not fun. And it just, like, you feel your age when that kind of stuff is happening, because it's just everyone's, it's all old age. It's nothing tragic. It's no accidents or, cancer or anything. It's just old age. So you feel, wow, you're standing in that line, taking another step ahead. So, yeah, that stuff is rough. But yeah, it's interesting, the difference with how they handle it here, and how it's very easy to tell if a family has had a death, because of how they kind of change their social interactions here. But anyhow, so I guess we will get started here. But yeah, I think I'm okay. Okay. Everything's supposed to be set up. Yeah, okay. So my pen is not. There we go. There it is. Okay. My pen wasn't agreeing with me, but now we're back. So yeah, so that's been kind of the bulk of what's been preoccupying me. So not much more to talk about with that. So I don't want it to become too gloomy. I mean, the cartoon itself is already a little bit of a downer. I don't need to have the whole conversation be that. But yeah, and so for the convenience store section, I have a little idea, just quickly kind of talking about, it was just something very funny to me that I didn't actually realize until much later, but a product that's become very Japanese that I didn't think was, that I didn't think would be, or would ever be. And I haven't done any research on the history of it. And the history of it might be kind of interesting, but as you know, Japan has a very strong tea culture, a very strong tea industry. But of course, now they also have Starbucks and things like that. So it's funny to see what they like and what they don't like. Like, Japan loves iPhones, and Japan loves Starbucks. And from the outside, and if I was to bet, before those things tried to get into the country, I would have bet against them. But yeah, they did well. It just has to hit that right, fashionable and kind of useful, and just hit that exact right note in Japan to get adopted. And I'm sure there's a lot of kind of corporate coercion that happens here. It seems to be that things can be made to be popular if the right powers get involved. But that was the thing that I noticed, that I have noticed the most doing shows and trying to sell foreign work illustrations and art books and comics and things, is that people need to be told what their opinion is of something. A lot of people don't automatically have a reaction to something. They're just like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. And if you're able to give them their opinion, their emotion, tell them this is this, then okay. And if they agree with you, then you've effectively given them your opinion, kind of like in an Inception type thing. But I'm not sure. I haven't done a lot of sales or retail in the US, but it seems interesting here. It's an interesting difference that people want to be kind of told what to think in a limited, just kind of fashion and consumer type way. I think their social opinions and things are pretty fixed, but it's very interesting how you have to kind of tell somebody, no, this is cool, you like this. That was a very unique experience for me. All right. We're drawing boxes again. So, yeah, just trying to warm up with some interesting shapes. Oh. Yeah, so I've got not much in my head now because of the bad news. So this may be a little bit of a silent cast. I'll try to, I want that edge. Try to get something going on, but yeah, it's sad. The one thing that it made me think of is how, towards the end of your life, basically, the culture, the country you grew up in, its culture and everything is kind of forcing you out. You feel disconnected, and the way people are communicating, the different kind of media that becomes popular and things, you just kind of seem to be pushed out of existence. There's fewer and fewer things you can do, and there's always the interesting thing is my grandfather was 94 when he passed away, but he was still driving up until that very year. So that's one of those huge things that's a big issue, and especially here because people are active so much later in life, is you have a sticker that goes on your car. When you're a new driver, it's like a new leaf, like a new sprouted leaf. And when you're an older driver, I think over 72 or something, they want to warn people by putting what used to be a yellow and orange kind of fall leaf symbol on the car, very nature symbols. And of course, old people objected to being depicted as dried, dying leaves. So they have now made this kind of clover shape that has all of the colors of the two symbols together. So it means you are both old or young. We're not going to tell you which one that people put on their cars, and it's just as a courtesy, as a warning. I think it's a requirement. I'm not sure if they fine you or if they we'll fine you if you don't have it. But when you're a new driver, the first year you have your license, I think you're supposed to have that mark on your car just so everybody knows what they're dealing with. But I'm not sure if there's actual law that is going to make your life miserable if you don't do that. But yeah, so that's always a difficult issue, and maybe more so in rural areas and places like the US where everything is so far apart. You lose your license, you lose your freedom, and that's really difficult. That changes how everything in life works. So without good public transportation, which a lot of places in the US don't have, that makes life pretty miserable. A crushed little box here. But yeah, and so speaking of age in Japan, that's a really common topic here, the silvering problem they talk about quite often. And the population of elderly of over 70 something here is crazy. It's huge. And so they're having to deal with the ideas of elder care and being understaffed to take care of the elderly. And I think that might be one of the big motivations. That and construction work are the two big motivations to find foreign migrant workers and to do the worker visas, to get people to kind of help with that situation. But I read that everyone is kind of keeping their eye on Japan to see how they handle this, because they're kind of the deepest in it right now. I think the largest portion of their population. That's also because people live so long. Both of my wife's grandmothers have been widows for like 30 years. It's insane. Almost like, I think, like 20 some years. So they'll eventually probably be widows longer than they were married in some cases. That's crazy. That is such a funny thing to live that long and to be, to still be pretty functional. I mean, mentally maybe slower, but physically, yeah, you see a lot of elderly in Japan, very, able to move around, no limitation to walking, and some canes, but that's about it. You don't see the amount of wheelchairs and things that you do, or scooters and things that you do in the U.S. So very different in that way. And it's more boxes. But, so that's a thing that I'm going to be witnessing and may even be participating in at some point. If I never get off this damn island, I will find out how the system is working. Yeah, and it's difficult, too, because people are having fewer kids. So one thing that happens here that doesn't happen in North America as much is the family will take care of their older parents, and they move them in, or have somebody be living in their house, depending on like who had the bigger house, which usually is the older families, because the family money usually resides with the older generation. So move into that house, and sometimes I think traditionally that burden is supposed to be the responsibility of the eldest son, but it doesn't always work that way. There's just like in every country, there's a good number of fail sons that don't kind of come through, or they choose somebody they want to marry that the whole family is just not going to abide, and that kind of changes the dynamic. But usually someone lives. And I guess now, though, with the it becoming more and more common, people not getting married, you do have the one unmarried child, if you have a couple of kids, the unmarried child that still lives at home into their 30s, and then it kind of just transitions into, well, if you're not doing anything and you're living here for free, you're probably going to have to take your mom to the doctor, and you're going to have to take on those responsibilities, even if you're not the oldest kid in the family. But it's very different too. I'm not as familiar with Canada, because the socialized medicine and everything makes things a lot different, I'm sure. But nobody has very few people I've ever seen have their elderly family members living with them, which is, it's harder. It's hard work. I guess it's difficult, but it's also, gives the grandkids, more access to that generation, and has them, hopefully live a more dignified life than being in an elder care kind of facility. But who knows? It's just funny. And the funny thing is that everyone has extra bedrooms like crazy in the U.S. I always have guest rooms and things, and so to not invite your elderly parent to live with you is just so crazy. Because it's not like you don't have the space. It's just you don't want the hassle. You don't want to, and and always because it's in-laws, and both husband and wife have parents, and how do you decide, if someone doesn't have a bigger, more obvious problem, how do you decide who lives with you? And then, of course, if they need specialized care, if it's something pretty severe and they need dialysis or some regular injections or something it's harder for somebody not trained in the medical field to do, then yeah, I guess that becomes the issue. But it seems like people just try to get out of it as much as possible. All right, boxes and boxes and boxes. I'm not sure what I'm doing here. I should probably... Yeah, my brain has been on autopilot here. So not having any big inspiration. Try to draw some things that I remember the shape of. No, not really. All right. But yeah, so all of this changing, all of these changes in life or end of life kind of ideas have been preoccupying me, so that's what you're listening to. I don't know what exactly that is, but I was surprised. I've been listening to a lot of different podcasts and people that have changed studios or changed their setups in their podcast, and it's I need to learn more about it, but I'm very surprised how maybe the angle of the microphone or sensitivity of the microphone changes how much breathing you hear and how much inhale you hear when people are talking. And previously I didn't hear anything, and then later, after a new setup or new microphone or something, that's all you hear is these really loud, sharp inhale sounds. And it's funny because I'm sure there's nothing physically that changed with the person doing the podcast, but just how they mic'd themselves, or the sensitivity of their equipment makes it really distracting. I've noticed that myself when we're recording things for the Idle Red Hands. Sometimes my is a little. I have to, when I just do the audio podcast, I go through and because I never learned how to talk, on air, like a good breath control or whatever for public speaking or whatever. And so, yeah, I noticed that. So it's like that. If you've ever seen the behind the scenes of The Abyss, the James Cameron movie, they recorded a lot of stuff actually in the water, and they had mic'd their scuba gear, but you got the respirator that goes and kicks in like you're in a regular, so it disrupts. And so the editors had to literally go in and take all of those, the respirators, the respirator sound, the mechanical, air being pushed into the mask sound, because it disrupted, every line and things that they said. But I felt like that when I was editing some of the podcasts, I don't know, I had the microphone too close or something, or just the rhythm that I'm speaking. I'll breathe before I say something, and sometimes it's really noisy. And I hope it's okay here, because I'm micing myself pretty close for this podcast or this live stream as well, so I hope it's not too distracting. But I blame all those good years of unclean living in Los Angeles, breathing that garbage air they got out there, for messing me up. All right. Boxes and boxes and boxes. Oh, sorry. Okay, so the camera seems, the exposure's a little bit off, but it's okay. Dim is fine for today. Oof. Okay, so I got to come up with some actual thoughts here. Let's see. Okay, maybe we will do the kind of a coffee joke. It's been a while. I think since it's been at least a week. I think I've been just doing jokes with boxes and cartoons with boxes for so long. There we go. All right. Let's straighten or unstraighten that a little bit. The angle of the shape of the cup a little bit better. There we go. I can't even remember like what shapes of maybe the it's wide tiny little jars like instant coffee. Trying to think of like Taster's Choice, or I don't even know if they make things like that anymore. I'm trying to think of what the popular little bit of reading I did showed Maxwell coffee. I'm not sure it was Maxwell House, but the Maxwell brand by General Foods was like in the 60s. In 1960, I think, was their first kind of instant coffee. I think there's like a this kind of shape. But yeah, I still remember brewing it because we had, because 80s and 90s was all the cheap coffee makers with the filters. Oh yeah. So that's all I can remember doing was endless filters and cheap coffee makers. I remember a funny story about coffee. My father was visiting. We had this like new style, like new technology coffee maker, and it had a reservoir. In it that kind of preheated the water, that kept the water hot, so it started to brew very, very quickly. And so my father came to visit, and it didn't look particularly, high tech or modern. The coffee maker itself, so he thought it was just a regular coffee maker, and the coffee was a little weak, so very standard kind of practice for the old cheap filter coffee makers is coffee's weak, just put it right back through pour it right back in. Where you put the water, just put the weak coffee and it'll run through the grounds another time. But this was the reservoir coffee maker, so it had the tank that it was heating the water, and so it had more water than you used, like the tank itself like held a couple of liters of water. And you never use that much for one pot. So it was in reserve. So, basically it's just like pouring the contents of the toilet in the back of the toilet tank. And so now then all the water was contaminated in the whole system. And so when he ran the water back through, it was weaker than it was originally. And it was completely blowing his mind to like, that always works. That trick always works. And it was just that weird idea, idea of having, I'll just leave this like this, of having coffee brew faster. Yeah, kind of made that impossible. But for the longest time, I'm sure since like the 60s, that's been the standard. Those Mr. Coffee, coffee makers. That was a very standard thing, the little basket. And then all the European stuff started showing up. So that you had those copper baskets and the brown paper filters. Oh, that fun stuff. But coffee. It's a little on the small side. Yeah, if I could just remember, those jars were always such an odd little shape. Something like that. All right. Yeah, I'm not drawing this very symmetrical. Sorry. Jeez. More than a bit off today. I apologize. I don't even think that the distort tool is going to save me this time. Let's see. How's this other one? Yeah, Yeah, this one's better. Maybe I can save it with a angle here. So yeah, we'll just, there we go. We'll do something like that. I think I've saved it. So deformed. Okay. Give it a chunkier, a little bit different proportions. All right, yeah, that's as, I think, close as I'm going to get to that weird. Okay, so we'll do some instant coffee. That's those guys. Where's the rest of that? The rest of these bums. All right. Put those up here. I know that's fascinating. Yeah, so we'll just do a little composition like this. Yeah, maybe back to the coffee will make more sense. I think it was better. At that point, and let's kind of get everything taking up a little more space. Like that. All right. Okay. So there'll be my commentary on instant coffee. And now, so a little bit more of this. Oof, how are we doing here? Wow, I've already rambled on for 30 minutes almost. About death and aging. It's rough. Oh, yeah, it really is like standing in a weird line. Yeah, with all your relatives ahead of you and just, one by one falling off that edge and just waiting your turn. Yeah, unless you're lucky and you get hit by a car or something, then yeah, just kind of waiting around. But was that? Oh, sorry. Try to get that out of frame. Not that it matters. Just want it to be close, but not, too close. And hopefully the I don't need a screen on it. I don't pop the peas too heavy, so it should be okay. And I'm, usually speaking pretty quietly too, so there's not a lot of air moving over the thing, moving over the front of the mic. All right, it's a lot of breathing here. Oh boy. So let's see. What are we doing for this second bit? If I can do a nice circle, maybe we can, or maybe just a couple of nice circles. Yeah, that's a good for any very amateur, very early in the game person that wants to draw. Just practice drawing perfect circles, perfect squares, things the same size over and over again to get your kind of control up as much as possible. I mean, you may not have to ever draw perfect circles, but it really if you're making that effort and trying to, and kind of just learning how to hold your hand, and in good ways to give you control, like good ways you can lean not like that good ways you can lean on the tool, or hold tools to give you a bit of stability to kind of give you more control and more reliable results. Yeah, as you can see, perfect circles are not part of this cartoon, but those are pretty rough. But if you needed them to be, I don't know what's going on there with the cursor. Yeah, but especially for this cartoon, the off circles are kind of charming. So yeah, I think I will just duplicate some of these then, because they're not too crazy as far as uniquely. Yeah, so I just had a quick idea about a and another thing you can do too, if you do have kind of recognizable oddities, is just kind of, you know, turn it or that even a little bit, and then things are not, see, that doesn't look like the same circle, even though it is. And maybe this one could use a little squish actually anyhow. But yeah, so I just had a Gumballs Super Ball idea. They still make Super Balls, right? They're always everywhere. Sometimes for little kids at the Japanese summer festivals, instead of catching goldfish with those little paper scoops, they will let you catch Super Balls because you won't beg your parents to take them home and buy a fish tank for them. But yeah, so I gotta come up with some. Yeah, very strange. All right. So I want to put, so maybe these guys in the back, I'll make it a little bit smaller and make this work a little bit more. Whoa. Gotta be careful of the thickness of the line. You know, you don't want that to change too much, because I'm not doing much of perspective. But bye bye. Oops, no. These guys. This guy. Maybe, yeah, maybe these guys are okay. And it'd probably help if I overlapped a little bit. Something like that. Okay. So let's fill a couple of these in. I guess we can fill them all in and just change the layer order if we need them to overlap differently. I'm filling them all in the same layer. Ah, my genius knows no bounds. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, anyhow, that's maybe all of the overlap we need. Why not keep going? Okay, so that guy needs to be in front of, not this, both. Well, here. No, here. All right, this is the absolute wrong way to do this, but you know. What? Oh. There it is. There it is. See, layer order, layer order. All right, I think that's enough. Oof, that's terrible. Okay, we're just going to have to do this. Once we color them and give a little bit else. Okay. We may be okay. I don't know. I don't know if I even want that in there. You. Yes, you. And that would mean him as well. And wherever this is. Okay. Yeah, a little bit more random. Random placement. Okay, That gives me a little bit of depth. Not much, but like the rest of the cartoon, it doesn't have a lot of depth. Okay, so there we go. So let's color these some nice gumball colors. Nice red and a nice warm yellow. A nice green. Blue. Not so. Whoa. Blue and orange. Just trying to think of those penny, the color of those penny gumballs. Boom. Okay, and then one of them I want to do the kind of Super Ball thing. All right, there we go. All right, and maybe actually put the green here. All right, let's try this. See if I can get him to look round and shadowy. Oh, there's nothing there. Okay, there we go. Whoops. Oh, come on. There we go. Wrong layer. Okay. And then maybe do this. All right. Already out of stuff to say, so I'm just putting shadows under all these gumballs. There we go. Okay, something like that. And then let's put some eyes on the gumballs. Where are we here? Okay, maybe. Oops. Eyes on gumballs. All right, there we go. There's some gumballs for Thursday. And then we'll go back to this. So I'll do a bluish cup mug. Metal silver spoon. And then the coffee color. Just do the whole thing. A little more saturated than Should do a label too. Yeah, how about that ugly green? It's like that more foresty green. There we go. And then a label. All right. Yeah, something like that. And then maybe the little banner about what's more wonderful about it. 50% less, more, this, now. All right, there we go. I think for the cup, I'm going to do that. Or not? What's going on? Oh, that's right. I just had the label highlighted. Yeah, using selections as masks sometimes. Whoops. There we go. Get yourself into trouble. There we go. That's not exactly the shape, but close. It's a really tiny jar of coffee. Oh, well. It's tiny and funny. Tiny. It's funny because it's tiny. Okay. Yeah, let's try this. Uh-oh. Okay. That was weird. It was just kind of cutting out on me. Yeah, we'll just do this. All right. And then the edge of this, and maybe some little milling around the edge. Maybe the label. So it's stuck on there a little bit, and the spoon. Yes, we're in the midst of pretty rough flu season. Seems like it always is, but yeah, schools are being shut down. They once they have over a certain number of kids, their standard procedure is just to shut the class down until and just like let everybody stay home for a week. You know, it's like 5 days, just to get ahead of the spread of it. And otherwise, they're spraying alcohol everywhere and disinfecting everything they can. All right, and then some eyes. Oof, let me go lower here. And a little bit smaller here. Oh, okay. Okay, so we've got a coffee joke and a gumball joke. All right. Okay, so I guess we could switch over to our little distraction before I finish writing these things. How are we doing? Yeah, we're doing okay. Okay, so, whoa, here we go to our little interrupting segment about convenience stores in Japan. All right, did the music play? It was off the, sorry, I'm assuming that it did. It was off the edge there. So the thing that I was going to talk about is instant coffee. So this is something you get pretty easily. So Blendy is a pretty common brand. It's one of the smoother, like kind of more tolerable brands of instant coffee. But instant coffee really, really surprised me in Japan, and it's kind of what I drink mostly, just because of the convenience. But before coming to Japan, I never had an idea about how popular and how strong a product it was, like worldwide. Like the sales of instant coffee just dwarf, regular coffee, and maybe that's changed since the advent of Starbucks and all of that stuff. But as far as in grocery stores, outside of the U.S., I can just remember the big coffee can, the big Folgers, metal coffee can for the drip coffee makers, like I was talking about before, the Mr. Coffees and stuff. But here, instant coffee is really, really prevalent. Break rooms and things, mostly have instant coffee. And the one really funny detail about that is I still remember watching the Kiki's Delivery Service, the Ghibli movie, and it's set in that weird kind of fantasy, almost like steampunk era. I guess they had cars. I guess they were like, it was early, so like 20s or 30s kind of this mysterious fantasy Europe. And they showed the woman making coffee, and she made instant coffee from a jar. I was like, how long is instant coffee has actually existed that long? Or maybe they're just like it's like a romantic 50s without certain technology. I don't know exactly what era they're trying to show there. But the woman in fantasy Europe was making instant coffee, and I was like, that's really bizarre. But then I did find out that instant coffee is very, very prevalent, and is actually more powerful than, I guess, Nestle, the people that don't think you should, that having water is a human right. Nestle is the huge brand. Like their Nescafe is just the killer brand in Europe and Asia. And I never realized that. And that was just amazing, because I brewed coffee forever, and to realize that instant was just the thing. It's going to be the easiest thing to do and the easiest way to go in a lot of places. It's very strange, very surprising. There it is right there. So the Blendy coffee is made by originally General Foods, and they were acquired, started in the 60s, and then they were acquired by Ajinomoto, the kind of big Japanese food maker, so kind of a joint venture. So it is more of a domestic brand. I think, like a lot of things in Japan, it's the branding or the support of the original, like kind of their licensing, whatever they're doing, but it's a Japanese run company. So rather than supporting the Nescafe monster, I always go for some Blendy, and it's decent taste and pretty smooth. And now they do the cold coffees in the fridge, and they also do, of course, ground coffee for brewing. But something that was very interesting for Japan, if you want to do one step less convenient than instant coffee, they have these drip coffee packages. So this is the Blendy version of that, and I just wanted to show off one of these because the design of a lot of these, and maybe they're making their way into the US, I just don't remember ever seeing them, because you would just brew a pot of coffee. You wouldn't actually do one cup. So it's a single cup, and it's always with love. It's a single cup of coffee. So it's like, instead of a tea bag, it's a coffee bag. But of course you don't steep coffee and tea the same way. You wouldn't want to just bob a bunch of filthy coffee grounds in your cup for a long time. So they have these bags. So it looks like a tea bag, and then it has this crazy little little support that you pull out here, and that you pull out here, and that is how it sits on your cup. Look at that design. And so of course you rip open the top of this bag, and so the bag itself is a filter. You rip open the top, and then you slowly pour hot water. And they even make special electric kettles with very thin spouts, so you can kind of drizzle the water very easily. Because if you pour quickly, it won't flow through. You'll fill up the bag and maybe overflow, and then grounds go into your cup and all that good stuff. But look at that design. That's crazy. So there's all different styles of this kind of thing. So you just set it on the edge of your cup, and you carefully pour into there, and you make yourself a single serving of drip coffee. And the coffee, I mean, it's better. If you've had instant coffee, it's got that instant coffee flavor. It doesn't feel fresh. It definitely has that reconstituted kind of flavor going on. And so this is much fresher and smells, more like real coffee, because it's just a finely ground coffee in there. No powder, no dried powder. But this always amazed me from the first time that I saw this, and they're relatively cheap. And I think, but unfortunately, just like everything else, Starbucks got into the act in Japan. They make instant coffee sticks, but they also do, I think they call it origami. They make a version of this, and they're like $3, $3 or $4 per bag. So yeah, they want to make sure they're gouging you for as much as possible. And it's not the same strength, just that single brewed thing. It's not the same strength as a cup of actually brewed Starbucks. So you're not really getting your money's worth. But these things just amazed me. So yeah, tear along the dotted line, pull those supports out, stick them on your cup, and carefully pour the water through it, and you have a instantly brewed cup of coffee. I mean, it's not as easy as just putting a spoonful of this stuff in there, but it tastes better. And yeah, I guess you feel like you're actually doing something to earn that flavor. But yeah, it's good stuff. So yeah, you'll find there's many brands of coffee and a lot of instant coffee, predominantly instant coffee. I would say, I mean, the section's pretty big. I mean, nothing is as big as the tea section in Japan, but the section's pretty big. And a lot of people don't even have coffee makers here. That's not like a priority anymore because of the availability of instant coffee. You'll have an electric kettle, and that's it. So then you can do tea or instant coffee. And that might be part of it, is that it's a tea culture and they're just used to only making hot water. And yeah, but then of course you can buy all kinds of ridiculously expensive espresso machines and all kinds of apparatus for brewing all those kinds of trendy coffees that were popular through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But yeah, so it was a funny thing that was very surprising to me, and I still think that's hysterical in that anime, to watch the woman in old Europe scoop out her instant coffee. I mean, instant coffee, the technology has probably been around for a long time, but the popularity of it, I'm sure it was more like of military use or something before there were a lot of people in there. Yeah, weird fantasy European villages making instant coffee. But yes, so there you go. So give this a shot. It's a fun little science project you can do in your very own coffee mug, is make yourself a little filter. So yeah, and it's a real easy mess to clean up because you don't have such an unwieldy big filter you're pulling out of a big holder that goes on top of the mug. Very fun. But anyhow, yeah, so instant coffee in Japan, and most convenience stores have all versions of that, as well as they're now brewing. They all have their own cafes, and they're all making their own lattes and cappuccinos and stuff at the convenience store, just to compete like McDonald's did with the kind of coffee Starbucks trend. But instant coffee, yeah, is good. You should try the Japanese version of it. And they've got like different mellownesses too. This is just kind of the standard. The green one is a standard blend, and then you get different mellow and sharper, kind of richer versions. But it's good breakfast coffee because it's not too overpowering for that American palate. All right, so let's write some cartoons. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that I do not do the be right back. So sorry about that. That was really I didn't notice that for way too long last week, so you had a premature ending to this wonderful live stream. And then I popped back once I realized the mistake that I had made. Yeah, that's why I just wish there was some way that I could audition exactly what was going out. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess it would be possible if I had maybe a headphone in each ear. I don't know. I could figure that out through a little mixer. But let's write some cartoons. Okay. So the idea was hiding. Hello. Hiding. Sorry, everything's a little laggy. Okay, hiding among the gumballs. I just want the idea of the little super ball. So being found out, I think I'm gonna switch away from this. I think I have a better for this. Okay, so what I was thinking for this is the only thing instant about this coffee was his dislike of it. The only thing instant about this coffee was his dislike of it. There we go. The only thing instant about this coffee was his dislike of it. Is there a better way to do that? The only it's more instant dislike than instant coffee. Instant. The only thing about this coffee, the only thing instant about this coffee was his dislike of it. Well, it was instant coffee. Instantly disliked, instantly. Oh, actually, I need to go back while I'm going back and forth with this. I need to go back and do some edge highlights for some of this. Yeah, I think especially this could use some. Totally missed that. Yeah, sorry, very distracted this week. Mortality and all that. So I'm a bit off. Yeah, put some little highlights with that plasticky cap. All right. Okay, there. Now everything's sparkly. The only thing instant about this coffee was his dislike of it. Instant coffee. Should move all of this down a little bit. Okay. Instant about this coffee was his dislike. Maybe just his dislike. The only thing. He had an instant dislike to instant coffee. He wondered, he wondered if his instant dislike of instant coffee was a coincidence. Instantly. Let's see. I think was his dislike. I think shorter is sweeter. The only thing instant about this coffee was his dislike. Instant dislike. That's the thing that I wanted. Okay. Choking hazard. Let's see. Oh, let's do superhero joke maybe. The super ball among the gumballs soon reveal his secret identity. Ugh. Super Bowl. Okay. Secret identity as gumballs. The gumballs felt comforted by the presence of a super ball among them. Okay, let's see how stupidly that goes. The gumballs felt comforted by the presence of a super ball among them. Sure, that works better. Gumballs felt comforted by the presence of a super ball among them. Super ball. Okay. I think instant about this coffee was his dislike. That, like I've always said, I write these and they feel so familiar, like I've written them before, like I have a limited amount of sentences in my head. Yeah, it feels super familiar. But that also means that it's the right tone, you know, that if it feels like I've written the exact thing before, that means it's at least going to match the other jokes. The instant about this coffee was his dislike. Okay, we will go with that. And then the gumballs felt comforted by the presence of a super ball among them. Okay. Oh, all right. So that will do it for this week, and thank you for joining me. I will get this uploaded and make sure the patrons get a link. And speaking of patrons, thank you. If you are a patron of this cartoon, I thank you so much for being one and keeping things going and keeping this happening every week. And if you would like to become a patron of this cartoon for as little as $1 a month, you can have access to the live stream, all the cartoon archives, and as well as higher levels can give you books, signed books, and original art, all kinds of good things like that. So have a look at the Patreon. So patreon.com/abusecartoons. You can follow this cartoon on Twitter at abusecartoons, and abusecartoons.com is, of course, the website. So thank you again for joining me, and I will see you next week. And remember, if you play the machines, make sure to wipe your hands. Talk to you next week. Goodbye.